This is the shore, and the waves keep crushing in.
A city that had a war too. Welcome to the International War Veteran Podcast. Blood Diamonds and Gold.com. Today, U.S. Army Iraq War Veteran Boone Cutler. He is an author, columnist. He holds the distinguished honor of being the first nationally recognized radio talk show personality. We talk about life and conflict live from Berlin, a city that had a wall too. With me on the show today is my friend Chute Disa, journalist and rock star. Welcome to the show.
It's going good. It's going good. It's nice to meet you.
Where are you? This is a German telephone. Oh, it's a green screen sound.
It is that right there is the German telephone that when I lived in Germany, the soldiers used to sit outside the base and wait in line at that phone right there. So I thought I would put it in the background so I could tell the story.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm Toyd,
yeah.
by the way. I'm supporting Frank today, and welcome to this. It's great to meet you.
This is Toyd. He's a music video producer and a musician as well.
Outstanding. It's nice to meet you.
So, you wrote a book, and you're a radio star and a producer now. What are you doing at the moment? What's going on?
At the moment, we're getting ready to launch a new television show, I guess we really don't have television anymore. We just have shows. And the new show is going to be discussing a lot of things, which I know you found an interest in, which is talking to people from different places around the world about political politics, about in their country, not just our own.
Do you have a title yet?
Yes, the title is called Boone, Boone.
Okay, yeah.
Did you see on US television the storm of the German at the Serbian parliament?
No, I did not see it.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
So tell me what happened. The
German and the Serbian parliament was stormed last year as well, and there were two other countries as well, the Armenian one as well. And another friend of ours was quite sure that the storm of the US Parliament came from the same scene.
That would be see, this is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about on my show, because as people of the world, we don't, we live in our countries and we think that nothing's happening in other countries that affects us, but it affects us. The things that happen in Germany affect America. The things that happen in Dubai affect Germany. Everything affects everything now. And I think that's where we need to have the conversation.
And it's so insane. Everybody understands globalization when it comes to buying a new cell phone or ordering something from a different country. But for some reason, the people that wield political power still haven't understood that everything they do somehow relates to something else, and that you can't exploit one country or go to war there and leave it there and not encounter any future repercussions.
I agree.
That we have on our hands now are, among other reasons, products of failed colonial politics in the past 200 years, right?
I think that I think politicians are having a problem now, because like you and I can sit on this call, we can know each other, we can know each other as people, as humans, and I think in the past it was very popular. How do you get one country to go to war with another country? You demonize the people. You demonize you have to dehumanize everything. But now, if an American president says, "Hey, we're going to go to war with China," well, I can get on a call. I can find someone in China to talk to, and now they're not some evil, mean person that needs to be killed. They've been humanized, and so I think politicians are having a problem now finding motivators to get, you know, one country to hate another country. I don't think it's going to happen so much anymore. I think what will happen more and more is using like this, the media manipulation, digital manipulation, to start uprisings in countries with their own people. I think that's what's going to happen from now on.
Yeah.
Why did you go to the army?
Oh, I went in the army very young. I was 18 years old, and I just wanted the adventure. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to, you know, it's just a young man wanting adventure. My family, everybody in my family had served in the military. I wanted to serve in the military. My first duty station was Ulm, Germany, and then I went to Hohenfels, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I could, Germany is like another home to me. When I think of Germany, I think that's really if I didn't live in America, I'd probably live in Germany.
That's lovely.
What did you learn in your training? What did you learn about PTSD?
Oh, I've learned a lot about PTSD. I served in the war in Iraq, and the war in Iraq was, you know, it was a war.
No, in your
And
training, what did they tell you?
Oh, nobody, they don't train you about PTSD in the military. They just wait until you get it.
Yeah. I have a question. You were part of Tactical Psychological Operations, PSYOP team. What exactly did you guys do there? What kind of things were you tasked with?
The things we were tasked with basically in Iraq was creating some kind of unity, or at least promoting a unity, so the people would take charge of their own country. At that time, there were many warring factions in Iraq in 2005, 2006. They were all trying to get the power, and we were trying to educate the people on what democracy was, what voting was. They had been told for their whole lives that democracy was evil, it was against Islam. And so our job was to put that in a context that made sense to them. And once they got the understanding of democracy, they all wanted it, they just didn't know how to get it.
That's a pretty noble
I thought you get prevention courses about PTSD and sexual harassment and stuff in the army. No?
Tell me that again. Say again.
I thought you get prevention courses about sexual harassment and trauma prevention in the training.
I
No?
think that's more, I think it's more prevalent now. It wasn't as prevalent when I was in the military. You know, I got out of the military in officially in 2010. So I've been out a decade. They've changed a lot of things. They are bringing different awareness to military sexual trauma, sexual harassment, post-traumatic stress, equality. There's a lot of things in the military that are being done now that weren't being done when I was there. And I think it's a good thing. I hope they continue to listen to the people that have been through it and who do the trainings. I've done a lot of training on the outside since I've been a civilian, and I hope they continue to listen to people and make that better.
Let's talk a little bit about your own trauma. You suffered traumatic brain injury, mortar attack in Sadr City in 2005. My first question would be, how long did it take after that incident for the TBI diagnosis?
At least a year. At least a year. I was injured in that explosion in, I believe it was August 2005, but I didn't what they say in America, punch out. It means I didn't get medevaced. I stayed, and I stayed in country because I could. And we had to make some adjustments with my team and I so I was having issues with my memory. And so we had to adjust for that. But for the most part, you know, I finished my tour, and a month before my tour was over, they sent me to Germany. I went to Landstuhl, Germany. I was there for about a week. And then from Landstuhl, Germany, they sent me to Walter Reed Army Medical Center. And after I was at Walter Reed, then they officially diagnosed me with traumatic brain injury.
Was TBI, oh, Francie first.
Go ahead.
What happened in Walter Reed? There was a scandal, no? 2007.
Yes, I was in the scandal of 2007. It was called the neglect scandal, meaning that the people there, the patients, were not getting the care that they needed, and it was a big problem. And since then they've rebuilt the hospital. They've done a lot of wonderful things. I don't hear the problems like I used to hear the problems or about the problems. I think they've got a lot of it fixed, but also there's not as much war going on. So there's not as many wounded or injured or sick that are at the hospital so they can handle it. At that time, the biggest thing that was causing the neglect was there were just too many of us. There were so many wounded, injured, and sick at Walter Reed at the time I was there. They were putting us every place they could. Any place they could find a spot, they were putting us. And there just weren't enough doctors and technicians and nurses to handle everything.
In other words, they put you on a combat cocktail and locked you up in chemical prison because they were overwhelmed, because they wouldn't know what else to do with the sheer amount of soldiers that they had to take care of. Because of course, the naive question was like, if they see that soldiers keep on killing themselves and it's fairly obvious that their therapy isn't beneficial to the people getting therapized, then you could ask, why do they keep on doing it? And so you answered that. But I have another question that goes a little bit deeper. And is medicating versus healing an American thing? Because I worked at an American university, and I saw whenever a student had a problem, some doctor would prescribe them a pill. Kids, 5, 6-year-olds are put on Ritalin. People that go through perfectly normal adolescent troubles and trials get put on antidepressant. It seems like it's a pill-popping nation, and this is also starting in Germany, but it's not what's happening in other countries in the world. So is that an American thing, and why do you think it is, if so?
I think it might be an American thing. I mean, I would hope that it's not, but based upon what you've said and what I see, I think Americans in many ways, we are consumers. We're consumers. We consume things. We buy things. We don't make anything anymore. We just consume. And I think it's very easy to get us to consume medication for somebody else's profit. I think the big pharma companies, I think they make it very easy. They're the ones training the doctors to give out the medications. And so
because they're very powerful.
They're very, very powerful. And in the United States, but you have to go back and put the responsibility back on the people too, because yes, I can understand how at first you don't really understand what's going on and you're just listening to your doctor and you're trusting them. But then if you start to get the idea that, hey, maybe this is a bad thing, then you have responsibility to stop the medications. I had to stop the medications after several years because it just, the realization was that this is my responsibility. I have to get off these drugs. I have to take control of my life again. And I think sadly, a lot of people don't get to that realization. If they do, they live. If they don't, they die. That's just how it goes.
So, what you say? So you're not so happy with the VA?
Oh, I'm much happier with the VA now than I was 10 years ago. They've made a lot of changes over the years, and now they're working with me. They're partnering with me. There's something called the Spartan Pledge that is it's an anti-suicide program, or at least it's a campaign. And
can you tell us how that started for the people who don't know the story yet?
Oh, sure. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I had gotten out of the hospital and I'd gotten off all the drugs, and a friend of mine that I served with in Iraq contacted me, and he told me about something that happened in his life, which started the conversation about suicide. We'd never talked about it before. And once we started talking about suicide, we just made an agreement that, hey, before either one of us makes that decision, give the other one a call. And so that kind of turned into a conversation with another friend of mine named Carl Monger. And he said, hey, we got to do something about the suicide thing. I said, well, my friends and I, we take a pact with each other that we won't do that until we talk. And he said, hey, I think you got something there. I think you have something that we should promote and build on and develop. And from there, we developed the Spartan Pledge. And the Spartan Pledge is basically 2 lines. It's, I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first. And the second line is, my mission is to find a mission to help my warfighter family. And really, in our community, in the warfighter community, if you have that battle buddy, if you have somebody you can reach out to, it changes things. And as long as that agreement has been made before a problem happens. See, that's the big deal, is you got to have the conversation before the problem happens, so you know what to do when the problem happens. And then the second part of it is to break the isolation, to be able to get out and do something and help other people, because when you help other people, you help yourself. And when veterans get around other veterans, they learn how to help each other through things that are not common to other people.
Because that's what they learned in battle too. And I think a big problem of veterans, although I've never been part of the military, is too, that they're together, they're part of the group while they're doing their service. And then they come back home and they don't have these allies anymore. And they don't have these sworn friendships and this camaraderie anymore, right?
You are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I think it's that kind of isolation. I mean, imagine being a 3-year-old and pulled away from your family. It would be chaotic. You would be confused. You wouldn't know what to do. Well, the familial bonds that you have in the military are very, very similar. It becomes family. You go through adversity that is far more than any other adversity other groups go through. You have to work through problems. You have to deal with pain. You have to focus yourselves in one direction and put yourself second, put the mission first. All these things make a very, very tight familial bond within the military. And I think the only way to get out of the craziness when we get out is to return to that bond.
Do lots of your soldiers have to swear to an oath of not telling anybody? Is that a reason? Why? Because it seems to be an international problem, actually, that soldiers don't communicate a lot with each other, even if the US has seems to have now a big veteran community, that you're not allowed by the oath to talk about stuff. Or is that just you come home and nobody asks you about war? Did people ask you a lot about war?
I think that there's some things that we don't talk about, but as far as, things that, as a group, things that affect us, I think it's just the basic, I'll tell you, the strange thing is so few guys get PTSD or have PTSD or have problems with PTSD while they're still in the military. There's oftentimes a delayed onset, and that delayed onset, is because we left that familial bond of the military. What you're asking is, we don't talk. Well, we have a little bit of a difficulty talking to people who haven't been through the same experiences. So it's not that we're necessarily sworn to secrecy all the time. It's just that who's going to understand, who's going to relate. And then so there's nothing in it for the warfighter when all of a sudden they spill their guts to their family or their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their husband or their wife. There's really nothing in it for them. They've just kind of given like a bunch of bad, negative junk, you put it on somebody else who can't understand it anyway. And so it doesn't really help us. But when we talk to each other, and most of the time we don't even need to talk to each other, just the fact that we can, if we have to, makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, so are you in contact with lots of your German veterans?
My German veterans, no, but I am in contact and have been in contact with the family. When I first moved to it was in the summertime, and we were at a lake in Homeland, and we, as young boys do, we met some girls and we met their family, and their family took us to the house, and we would go there for cake and beer and just have fun and sing and have a good time. I've stayed in contact with that family through the years, and it's really nice. It's nice to have friends in Germany. I have an Iranian friend who lives in Germany, and it's really a beautiful place.
I have one last
Why do
question.
you have, I searched your Instagram, and you have there, you quote Goebbels. Why is this?
Tell me again.
You quote Goebbels on your Instagram. Why?
I don't
I have a
understand.
question to that. That's a little bit more concrete too. So after September 11th, you were rather enthusiastic to rejoin the army and to serve your country. Now you're quoting Hermann Goering and Lenin, exposing the tactics of the powerful to get the useful idiots and the common people that of course have no interest in war to participate in this game of power and serve as cannon fodder to serve agendas that they don't even know about under the cloak of freedom and democracy. So I feel you have developed from an enthusiastic soldier into somewhat of a pacifist. Is that right, or am I completely wrong?
No, you're not completely wrong. I would put it this way, and what I'm about to say may seem shocking, but it will explain my position. I think there is absolutely a time for war. I think that has to happen. I think humans do kill each other. I think that will continue. I think there's always a pecking order, and nobody wants to be at the bottom of the pecking order. I think everybody always wants their team to win. I think this will be a continuous thing. However, I also am very familiar with manipulation. I'm familiar with manipulation based upon my previous job in the military. And I think there are a lot of people, like I said before when we started, we're not going to be dropping bombs on people the way we used to do. In order to destroy a country, we're going to influence it from the outside and get their own people to destroy their country. And so that I guess what I'm saying is nuclear bombs have been replaced by useful idiots. And I don't want nuclear bombs, and I don't want useful idiots, all for the same reason. I want to protect where I live. I want to protect my family. I think there is a better way of doing these things. I quote Nazi propagandists because they made a lot of sense. It makes people think. And you can't say they weren't effective, because they were effective. They were very effective. And I think it's important to show people today, because especially in America, where we have this idea that we have to cancel things that are uncomfortable. We have to get rid of things in our history that we don't like. We don't want to face it. You know, I think that's wrong. I think we have to look at it, and I think we have to learn from it, not just learn by what's happened in America, but other places. And I think there is so much to learn by the manipulation that was presented, created, and basically flourished in Germany. There was a lot of manipulation. A lot of people got hurt. Do we absolutely know the whole story? No, because, you know, history is written by the victors. So we don't know the whole story, but we do know that manipulation happened. We do know that the advent of, I mean, what did Hitler do? He put a radio in everybody's house. Everybody's house. So you could talk, so they could talk to them all at the same time. Well, what do we have now? We have the internet. We've got these phones. You know, it's in everybody's hand, and they're going to use it for manipulation.
And they all learned from each other. Hitler from the communists from Hitler. It was, you know, the mix of agitation and propaganda, of terror and propaganda that swayed the people.
And it's the same techniques. It's always the same techniques. The techniques don't change. Only the message does. And that's another reason why I think it's important that we talk with people from other countries. You're in Berlin, I'm in Reno, but we can have these conversations and say, hey, you know what? I see the same thing. You know, the propagandists they're doing these things in my country. And I'm like, hey, they're doing it in my country. We have an opportunity right now to really bring the people together so we stop dehumanizing people in other countries.
Now, Iraq soldiers get money from the VA for the Gulf War syndrome and nuclear bombs, DU munition. Is that
Yeah.
official now?
I think that they are getting a disability payment as far as you know, those that were injured in nuclear blast or testing or things like that. I think that did occur. I don't know how much, to what extent, when, or how. But yes, the soldiers that served, that were injured in Iraq or Afghanistan or in training or anywhere else, if you're injured while you're on active duty, they do have a what's called retirement disability. So they will compensate you for that for the rest of your life or until you're better.
Because the German parliament says there were no DU munition in Iraq and in Kosovo. And German veterans don't get officially money.
Oh,
Yeah.
there were there was definitely WMD in Iraq. I can prove it. I've proven it in my book, Call Sign Voodoo. There's an official memo and there's, you know, acknowledging chemical weapons in Iraq. It's on official American letterhead, Army letterhead. So there was absolutely weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Were they to the degree that there would have been a threat within the United States? Well, I think a little bit is a lot when it comes to chemical weapons. Did they really have the plan to do that? Well, I don't know, because I wasn't there with them at the time. But I can say in my next book, PsyOpera, where I spend the time talking to a man who's in the Iraqi government now, who was part of the enemy when I was there. He has a lot of explanations and stories for what was going on in Iraq before the war and during the war that I think is going to be very good to all audiences, so they can see both sides of the story.
Sound, tell us a bit.
Okay, sure. Like in talking to this man, and I have to keep him secret because he would be killed if people found out who he was. And he's a revolutionary now. He works as a spy inside the Iraqi government. They don't know he's a spy. But he wants to help the young people achieve democracy in Iraq, but he has to be secretive about it. So he's a friend of mine, and he plays the game, and he tells me what's happening. For instance, when I ask him, you know, why did America invade Iraq? And, you know, WMD, weapons of mass destruction. He goes, no, that's not what really happened. I'm like, okay, what really happened? He said, American sanctions had weakened Iraq so much at that time that Iran was getting ready to invade Iraq again, and they would have won. And if Iran had invaded Iraq at that time and won, they would have picked up that key terrain, that geopolitical terrain of Iraq, and then been able to consolidate the rest of the Middle East, because they had Hezbollah in other countries that were destroying those countries. So basically, Iran was getting ready to monopolize the Middle East. And the United States needed a reason to go in there. Obviously couldn't tell everybody what was going on. And so the real reason we went there was to stop Iran from taking over Iraq. But, you know, that wasn't a theme that the American people were necessarily going to rally around. So we did something different. So now you get both sides of the story. People can make the decision, you know, is it as we were told, or could this be the other explanation that actually happened?
Well, the atomic veterans, do they have a big lobby in the US?
Are you talking about
You live in Nevada. The guys who made the tests for the atomic bombs are cleaned up for the US government.
Well, that was a long time ago. Sadly, I don't know how many of those guys are around or how big their lobby is, but whatever it is, I'm sure they did not get what they were due. I can assure you that.
I have another question regarding the genesis of war. In the 19th century and before that, everything was about individual bravery. Then in the 20th century with World War I, it turned away from that, and it was about who has more tanks, more planes, more food, and who can survive longer in this highly industrialized war. After that, after Second World War, it was who has the atomic bomb and who can deploy it. Mm-hmm. Then with 9/11, and even the years before that and after, we got into something called asymmetric warfare, that a small, highly trained group could target symbolic targets and on the surface only inflict minor damage, destroy a building, kill a couple of thousand people, and still have a huge attack on the way a society imagines itself. In that case, the United States, that have never had war on their own territory. And after that, we got into, well, basically media war or cyber warfare that is carried out by media. My question
You
now,
don't
after
need
all,
cyber warfare. You can just watch international news if you have the right browser.
yes,
What was the question?
as you say, there's so much manipulation, but my question really is, do you believe in the validity of war in a post-globalized world? Do you think that war is still something that's valid in our times, that's built on a social network that is global and on communication and on people getting closer together, like our exchange right now?
I think war will be harder and harder. Like you talked about this genesis of war, and you left off with asymmetrical warfare. And I think that we still see a different aspect of asymmetrical warfare that's happening right now, and it's covert. It's all covert action or covert influence. The covert action and covert influence is happening digitally. In the past, if you were one country and wanted to affect another country covertly, you would have to invade the country. You'd have to infiltrate that country. You would have to find a susceptible audience, and you would have to find a way to access their mind to get them to do things covertly. And then part of that would be through influence, and part of that would be through different means. This takes a lot of time to do. Okay, it's not easy. You have to be secretive. You have to be there. You have to have cover. You have to do a lot of things. Very difficult. In today's world, it's no longer difficult, because if I want to find a male Caucasian in Berlin between 35 and 45 years old, I can find all those people just by doing a few searches and finding out where they're hanging out, and then I emulate them, and then I go in there and I've infiltrated, and I do everything that people can do everything that would normally be done in that instance. I recruited a guy who's in the Iraqi government online, you know, and there was a technique that I used to do that. And it was very similar to the techniques that people use in the physical world, in the real world. Well, now it can be done on the digital space in weeks, no time at all, very easy. And so when we talk about, you know, the genesis of war and how things are changing, the way things are changing now, and I think it will continue for quite some time, is it will be covert action being carried out through the influence of the internet or social media.
My question was aimed at that, but it's broader and more of a philosophical nature. Do you think that war in these times, where it's not about, well, I want to enlarge my territory and I want to get these goods, does war make sense in our time now, in this post-globalized time?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But
Sorry,
what you do? What would you do? Like criminals as criminals. I mean, there will always be criminals, and you have to defend.
There will always be criminals. There will always be saints. There will always be good people. There will always be bad people that are good, and there will be good people that are bad. There will always be war. I don't see that going away. Not yet. I don't see a venue for that going away yet. And that's just my honest opinion. I think that, you know, I think war, I think primates in general have conflict with other primates over something.
That's true, but these modern wars, it seems that many suffer and very few profit. And it seems like people go to a country, they destroy it, then they have to rebuild it, still they hate it, and there's a counterattack. It seems kind of, to me, it seems although I'm not anti-war, and I think many wars in the past were quote unquote sensible, but in these modern times, I have a hard time understanding the sense of war, and I think that there's damage to many and gain to few.
Well,
And
you're absolutely right. I'm not going to disagree with you because you're right. Philosophically, I couldn't agree with you more. But let's look at this from another context. Let's take China and the South China Sea. Okay, the South China Sea. Why is China in the South China Sea? Well, for one, it's a military objective, and they're trying to protect something. They're trying to deny access to other people to an area. Well, what's in that area? I mean, it's just a bunch of ocean, right? No, it's a bunch of gold, okay? It's a bunch of gold in that sea. There's a bunch of gold in the South China Sea, Tonkin, Philippines. There's a bunch of gold. And if China wants to create a gold-backed cryptocurrency that everybody uses because the petrodollar is gone, fiat currencies are going to go away, well, will there be war over that? Yeah, because there's going to want to people that want to ruin that market, and China's going to want to protect it by keeping the gold, just like we've done in the Middle East. It's stayed destabilized for a reason. That way we can control the flow of oil. Now we're going to keep everything stabilized around precious metals, because I really believe personally there's going to be, and say it's not true anyway, but just look at the example. Is that worth fighting for? Because I'm pretty sure people think it is. Whether I agree, whether I think it should be or not, doesn't really mean anything. The fact is people do, and they will, and there will be a top of that pyramid that's always seeking power. They will always use the people in the middle of the pyramid who want to make money, and at the bottom of that pyramid is the widest swath of people, and they're the true believers who want to do something good for the world and everybody else, just like you and I. But they're going to be used. It just happens.
But it will be harder to find these useful idiots, just like you said before.
It will. You know what? Right now, I think it's easier because of the access people have. And that's why I try and put this education out there so people can maybe think and step back a minute and go, hey, wait a minute. Everybody's using the same tactics and I'm always the pawn. And it is everybody. I see the same Republican, Democrat, Nazi, communist. They all use the same tactics. It's all the same tactics. It's just about how they can make you believe that you can benefit at that time and place by those tactics.
Okay.
What's the weather like in Berlin?
Oh, it's horrible. There's snow.
Snow.
You were only in Iraq, right? Where else were you? Because almost the command for the military police, special forces. Where else have you been?
Well, as far as countries, where have I served? I served in Germany, overseas. I served overseas in Iraq, and I served overseas in Germany.
Okay. So, toys? And yeah, do you like any German music bands?
I can't keep up with, at the time when I was in Germany, Roxette was a big band, okay? That was the big band when I was in Germany. It was a while ago.
They're Swedish, though.
See, I screwed that up. I don't even know that much, but they played the hell out of them in every German club I was in. I remember that much.
That's for sure. What kind of music do you listen to?
Pretty much everything. I like a lot of rock. I like rock. I like punk. I like country. I like hip hop, R&B. Pretty much like everything. German techno is not my favorite. I'll be honest.
Yeah, there's good and bad. It's a huge scene, and
it's a fun scene. It's definitely fun
scene.
Yeah.
But I'm more of an analog guy myself, so I come from a rock and roll background. I'm a rock and roll musician, so I like playing the guitar, and
very, very good. Tell me
is there a big nuclear? Huh?
Tell me about your station in Berlin. What's the?
Oh, it's the public radio Berlin.
Good. Tell me about
Yeah,
it. What do you? How
it's
did you become interested in that?
huh?
How did you become interested in that in public
Oh, I did
radio?
rock and roll for the catering. I did interview lots of black metal bands. Actually, all the black metal bands because they don't get any other airplay. Basically, us Toited also interviews Black Sabbath. It's on my podcast on Blood Diamonds and Gold. And I was wondering, is there a big anti-nuclear movement in the States?
I have not seen a big anti-nuclear movement in a lot of years. A lot of years. But
It's
it
not
might be
trendy
online
right
now.
now.
It's not trending. I mean, it's.
People
I don't
don't
think.
perceive it as a threat.
I think everybody's asleep at the wheel because it is a huge threat, and
It
it's
is.
not like. Yeah, it's a huge threat, and right now it's in the background. Everybody's sleeping about it. They're not thinking about it, but it's still there. It's not like it's going to go away anytime soon either. Because how do you get rid of it?
Yeah, because the atomic veterans in Reno get money, and their kids start to get money as well. You can apply at the U.S. government for money because of the radiation. You should apply too.
No, I can't apply. I don't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
But thank you for that information.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering all the time why, you come from a military background, and I do talk to lots of veterans, and do veterans get from? They don't seem to see the Vietnam veterans and the Gulf veterans. Why don't they all get together and fight against the new munition, or that the people against nuclear bombs or money?
I don't know why they don't get together and do that. I haven't talked to them about it. It's a good idea, though.
So they don't have a big lobby. The old man.
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. They have a lobby as part of other groups, the American Legion, Vietnam Veterans of America, disabled American veterans. There's lobby groups out there that do a fantastic job most of the time for national or federal issues, and they go way back. But as far as them individually getting together and trying to do something, I think they work through the lobby groups, and most of the time that's the American Legion or the Disabled American Veterans, one of the national veteran service organizations in Washington, D.C.
I also think it's a matter of ideology a little bit, because I could imagine that a lot of veterans are rather conservative and think that anti-nuclear power is more of a hippie and tree hugger thing, and they might not feel entirely comfortable making this a top item on their agenda. Or am I completely wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think that's a factor because, we've gotten into this identity politics, which I don't subscribe to at all. I mean, my beliefs are all over the place. You can't nail me down to it.
Yeah. Hippie redneck,
Hippie redneck, right. My politics are all over the place. But I don't think a lot of people are that way. And that's one of the other things that I'm really trying to do with the new show is to explain to people how devastating polarization is. Because once you have polarization, then you have dehumanization, then you have killing, then you have war. Yeah. It goes in that order. And there's so much polarization. I'm this, you're that, I'm good, you're bad. There's so much of that right now, and it's all manufactured, and in part we do it to ourselves. But polarization is the manufactured sense of life and death. That's why people get so emotional about it, because they think they're talking about a life and death situation. Oftentimes they're not, but they feel like it is.
Every topic can be hyped up to be this issue of life or death, and it gets very hard to talk to people. And then with polarization, another thing is, and that's where I have a problem with it, is a lot of people act against their own best interest. I mean, look at, for example, the lower white middle class in the US. A lot of them go against their own best interest if they vote Republican for whatever reason, you know, because they vote the strongman, they vote for, you know, the Bible, they vote for the right to bear arms, but on their tax return, or when it comes to having free health insurance, it might not be in their best interest.
Well, I think a lot of people from the same demographic you mentioned, you know, when you're talking about lower middle class or middle class Americans, a lot of them have served in the military. You know, you don't have a lot of upper class Americans that serve in the military, and oftentimes the very lower economic class, they do and they don't. It's a middle class thing, and so we experience things like the Veterans Administration Hospital, and it hasn't been good. It just has not been good, and we know how big it is, and the bureaucracy involved. And it's not that I think a lot of people are against. I'll give you my standpoint. Okay. I'm not against socialized medicine for one, but only under one context. And that is, I want new medicine. I want healthy medicine. If you unleashed socialized medicine in the United States, what you would see is a crazy amount of pill popping freaks. Okay. It would be insane. And you'd see surgeons going crazy, cutting everybody up. And I mean, it would be insane. It would become an industry that is run like every other American industry.
You're right.
And so it would be bad in America because that's how we are here. That's how things are here. But if you start telling me, hey, we're going to have socialized medicine and we're going to incorporate stem cells, hyperbaric oxygen, cannabinoids, you know, the things that I wrote a book, FPL, about the things that work. You know, what if you want to have socialized medicine about something that's healthy medicine, I'm all for it. Let's get it done. It's cheaper than the other stuff anyway.
I know.
The amount of money that the government gave me in painkillers and opiates, I could have had stem cells several times, and it just would have fixed the problem.
And it's the same as war again. You know, a lot of people suffer and very few profit, and that's,
so
I think, one of the problems of this hyper-capitalist society. And I'm certainly not a communist saying that, you know, but if everything just ends up being about the bottom line, then people will suffer.
We don't have people in the power base that care about anything other than the bottom line and their power. And they're very good at selling people a dream. And it's a dream that becomes a nightmare because you can't wake up from it. And, you know, socialized medicine in the United States would be a chemical freak show. It would just be a chemical freak show. And then it would create so many other problems that I've seen, at least in my life and in my community, because that's what's happened. And we had veterans have socialized medicine. How did they treat it most of the time? When they get overwhelmed, it's a chemical freak show. It's a chemical prison. It's give you anything so you stop talking to me about your problems. That's what it becomes.
It's a very good point. I never, ever thought of it that way, but I think you're completely right, because this is how I experienced medicine in the United States. You know, I had a toothache, and then I ended up with a Vicodin addiction, you know, a little later. And that's kind of fucked up if you think about it, you know?
Yeah, I stayed on about 30 milligrams of morphine, 70 milligrams of Oxycontin every day for several years. It's okay. So are we going to, here's what I'd like to do too. I'd like to make this an invitation that not only do we talk today on your show, but I bring you on my show. I would like to talk to both of you at some point in time on my show, and we talk about these things, because I think it's very telling. Like if I explain, well, what would socialized medicine in America look like? Oh, okay. Well, now it becomes more clear. See, when people start talking to people, everything changes. We've got to stop letting the talking heads, the media, you know, whatever the next advertisement somebody bought, we've got to stop making that the primary message from which.
Yeah. So what about the store? Why do you think Biden is gonna change a lot? Is that a good thing? Are you happy with your new presidency?
Yeah, the new presidency, the Biden administration, let's see how that goes. I think people are, again, do we know the truth or do we just know what's believable? I don't think we can tell the difference anymore. So we're going to have to see how this goes, and hopefully it'll go better than a lot of people are worried about.
Okay. So you're in Reno, no?
Yes, I live in Reno, Nevada.
Do you have any questions about Germany?
Thank you for clarifying. See, this is something I didn't take the time to reach out and talk to other people who are living in the area who can explain it, because there's so much propaganda that I don't think people know the truth. I think they know what's believable, but I don't think they know what the truth is.
Yeah, I can't read Fox News on without Tor browser, which I find really funny. I find it strange.
Okay,
because
well, let's
there's
stop.
lots of official firewalls even to the US and Italy or stuff. That's strange.
That is a very good topic I think we should talk about on my show, is what do you see for information? Like, you're telling me you're using Tor browser. A lot of people don't know what that is. It's an encrypted browser that gets you out of where you're at so you can get information from different places. I think it's important to talk about that stuff, like what's being censored in Germany. Please do. Please. And this is a beautiful thing. I want to put this out there. I want to be an example of how people act when they don't act polarized. So if I have a different belief than you, that doesn't mean anything. That means that you think differently than I do. It's no different than you like chocolate milk, I like regular milk. We shouldn't hate each other over that. And I don't think we're going to be able to find a way around the polarization and dehumanization until we stop making everything about life and death, because so many times it is simply manufactured. It's not real, and people got to start having real conversations with each other in other places. I've learned a lot today about the immigration that's going on, or that has happened in Germany. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, all I heard was Mein Kampf is flying off the shelves, and the Germans are getting pissed off at the immigration, and Middle Easterns are going into Germany and wrecking the whole place. Germany's gone. It's been devastated. That's what we were hearing in the United States.
No, it's far more complicated than that, of course. But you're right. You know what ruins Western society is binary thinking, the idea of good and evil. Is there something absolutely evil unless it's in a cartoon and it's a cartoon character? I don't think so. I don't think this absolutely evil exists. We gotta stop this whole black and white thing and allow many, 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 many shades of gray.
I could not be in more agreement with you. And I think as long as we agree on that ethos, then everything else we can work out. We can figure this out, and we're going to have to. We're going to have to, because we're only getting closer.
I mean, honestly, if you have a relationship with a woman, or, whatever anybody is into, it's the same thing. If you see a woman solely from your male perspective and you're not willing to move an inch, you'll never understand her. You'll never have real love or a fulfilled relationship. And everybody knows that in their relationship with their wives or with their husbands,
Yeah, you got to learn. You got to learn a little bit about the other side of the fence if you're gonna get along for very long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's definitely stay in touch. You guys have my number, and we'll figure it out. But I definitely want to bring you on the show. I want to talk about immigration in Germany, because there's just not enough. Again, there's a lot of believable information that might not necessarily be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I got to get going. Is there any last minute questions before we figure out another time to talk?